Welcome, everyone, to the DeVory Darkins show. It is November 28th, Friday. Hopefully, you guys had a great Thanksgiving. You had good food that put you to sleep. You got to spend time with your family. That's what my wife, my son, and I did yesterday, and we're still kind of recovering. You know, we woke up this morning feeling like we had a hangover. I mean, how does that happen, right? I thought that only happens when you're drinking, but I guess when you have good food, that can happen to you as well. So shout out to my wife. She cooked an amazing meal, just phenomenal. She had stuffing. She had these yeast rolls that she made from scratch. What else? Oh, mac and cheese, collard greens. I mean, that's my jam. Okay, collard greens. I could just eat that alone. All right, I love that. And she also had a roast as well. So hopefully you guys had a great time with that. The obvious, I guess, thing to address in the room already, the elephant in the room, is what took place the day before Thanksgiving, which brings us to the point of today's video with a fatal update. As we know, one of the two National Guard troops has unfortunately passed away. And we're going to get into who that is and her family and what the president had to say about it. And so obviously that is the worst case scenario there. The second one is still in serious condition. He actually was in the Air Force. She was in the Army. Both served in the National Guard. So we'll get into those details. Again, we're still having the same stuff that I discussed, the day before Thanksgiving, which is Democrats are continuing to blame the president. They're making this tragedy more about the president than the actual root cause of what took place, which is the fact that this person was in the country via a Afghan program during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And you guys probably already know all about that, but we'll get into that as well. Even some Democrat lawmakers are calling for more stricter gun laws, which we already know where that leads to, nowhere. And in fact, we'll do the research to prove it to you that stricter gun laws does not equal a reduction in crime. And then we'll react to a lot of your guys' questions and see what you guys have to say about everything so far that took place during this tragedy. All right. Well, I hate to, start off with a negative note. So why don't I just say this? If you're on Rumble or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter and you're following me right now, I want to give a big shout out to you. Very grateful that you take the time out to watch the show, which is Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. The whole purpose of the show is common sense commentary, showing you guys what both sides are saying to these conversations, these trending stories, these heated debates, and encouraging you to think for yourself. Yes, I have a bias. Yes, I am a Christian. Yes, I am a conservative, but I'm not going to cram that down your throat. Okay. I believe you have your own intelligence and you can think for yourself. So that's the whole purpose here if you're new. And finally, if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I get messages every day talking about, oh, I thought I was subscribed, and then they go to look and they were not. So make sure you guys do that as well. All right. Now let's go to this first clip, which is from the president. This is actually being reported by Fox News. He was in Florida yesterday, obviously at his home, and he had to set up his own press conference and things like that. And there was a couple of heated exchanges with reporters, and we'll get to that as well. But here's just the bottom line up front on where we are at with all of this.
President Trump with a somber update during his Thanksgiving remarks to troops last night, announcing 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom died from her wounds, while 24-year-old Andrew Wolf remains in critical condition.
I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. That's horrible. As you know, the other young man is fighting for his life. He's in very bad shape. He's fighting for his life, and hopefully we'll get better news with respect to him. And the monster that did this is also in serious condition. But we won't even talk about him.
The Trump administration is vowing justice as questions mount about the suspect, an Afghan national who entered the U.S. under the Biden administration in 2021. He was granted asylum in April of this year and had previously worked with the CIA.
Okay. That whole summary sums up in my opinion, what's wrong with this country. Okay. You first have National Guard troops who are on these streets doing exactly what they were called to do, which is to protect their local neighborhoods, particularly Washington, D.C. And we know that crime in D.C. has clearly dramatically dropped, by the way. And they're just doing what they were asked to do. And then all of a sudden, this radicalized individual, criminal, guns them down in broad daylight. So that's a problem in and of itself, and in Washington, D.C. Now, what's the difference between what he did and what literally happens in Chicago every day? Well, what happens in Chicago every day is usually people who were born here, American citizens in the ghetto, okay, who have been programmed to kill each other. All right. The difference here is he's not born here. He's not from this country. OK, he came to this country because of our own federal government. So I don't care who they plan to blame. And I'm talking about lawmakers, whether it's the president, the FBI, the DHS, Joe Biden. I don't care what it is. The bottom line to it, our federal government, particularly the past administration, allowed too many people into our country and clearly had a vetting issue. I mean, they barely have, they have problems now vetting people. President Trump has a problem vetting people within his own cabinet. You don't think we have problems vetting people coming to the country? I mean, we're talking about a president at the highest level of power, leadership, and influence. That is the executive branch. He has a vetting issue himself. So again, of course, we're going to have a vetting issue when you allow 90,000 Afghanis to enter our country. Of course we will. And that's not talking about Chinese. We're not talking about Mexicans. We're not talking about people from South America. I mean, when you put it all together, the system has been overloaded. I think that's very clear, which is why the system needs to be gutted. We need to get everyone out of this country who crossed the border illegally. That's just, there should be no reason to debate over that issue. But as you see, brick by brick, day by day, Democrats continue to move the goalposts, right? They don't want people who cross the border illegally to be deported. That's why they've switched to saying, hey, you know what? It's not a criminal offense. It's not a crime. It's a civil offense. Okay, we need to do something for them. Listen, I just saw a clip of a Republican congresswoman claiming that she wants to introduce a bill that helps the people who did cross the border illegally find a way to gain citizenship here. I forgot. How does that work exactly? If I cross the border illegally into Poland, if I cross the border illegally into North Korea, if I cross the border illegally into Russia, what's going to happen to me? I think you guys already know the answer to that. All right. Now, let's say I cross the border legally into those same countries. All right. Don't you think they're going to vet me? Right. Don't you think they're going to make sure they're watching me? Right. I mean, because they have stricter processes in place when it comes to people who entered their country. All right. America doesn't, in my opinion, based on what the results continue to show, our system when it comes to tracking people is overloaded. OK, I think that's very clear. And if it's not overloaded because the people who work in the government may push back, then that means you guys are picking and choosing which one you want to focus on. And you're allowing these risks to come into our country, these national security threats to come into our country. And you're kind of tolerating it, hoping it doesn't blow back on your face. I mean, which one is it exactly? All right. Well, this has led to obviously an investigation into how he came to this country, what we're going to be doing moving forward, and how this all took place. Let's take a listen to that now.
Trump administration has launched an interagency investigation into how this attack could have happened at the same time that they are ramping up President Trump's aggressive immigration policies. The suspect in this shooting is an Afghan national. We know that he came to the U.S. in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome. That is that Biden-era program to resettle Afghans in the aftermath of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He applied for asylum in 2024, and that asylum was granted under the Trump administration in April of 2025. Now, we've also learned that this suspect worked with U.S. forces, including the CIA, a U.S. official telling CNN that he was vetted by intelligence agencies and clean on all checks. So now, as Steve laid out, there are so many questions about his pathway to violence as this investigation continues. But there are key new steps to crack down on immigration, including a review review of all Biden-era asylum applications.
All right, I have to stop it there because, you know, it's like an epiphany. They can do this whole freeze all these Afghan applications, and which is what the president announced. That's all a bunch of bullshit. Let me explain why. If this guy was working for an intelligence agency and they vetted him and then he committed this act, the problem is not this whole refugee program. The problem is that our own damn agency allowed this guy to get away with this. What do I mean by that? You don't think they knew about this guy already? They listen to us every day. They watch us every day. They want to know exactly what you're doing right now. They can find out. Don't let them make you feel like you're stupid or something here. Let's not act like they are stupid, okay? Let's not act like they don't have the technology to know exactly what people are doing. So they want us to truly believe that this guy worked for the CIA and he's just an innocent guy, vetted, passed everything, he's good, enters the country, he's good, and then woke up one day and gunned down 2 National Guard troops. What is this, Netflix? A TV show? Are you kidding me? Like, there's no way the CIA was not aware of this guy. No way. No way. I just think it's a threat that they clearly either tolerate it, accept it, did a risk on. Maybe they thought he wouldn't go all the way. I don't know. But I'm just speculating. The bottom line is, and maybe I'm naive, I just don't have it in me to believe that the CIA and these other intelligence agencies was not aware of him. There's no way. It's 2025, folks. There's no way they were not aware of him. I just don't think they did anything about him. They dropped the ball somewhere along the line, or, and you know DeVory, he doesn't get into conspiracies, or they allowed this to happen. It wouldn't be a stretch. It wouldn't be a stretch. I mean, we've seen what the CIA has done over the past, 50 years, okay? It wouldn't be a stretch. Now, the question would be, why would they allow something like this to happen? I don't know. Maybe to create more discourse. I don't know, to stymie the Trump administration. This is all speculation. I have no definitive evidence to prove this, okay? All right, so just so you guys understand, I'm not telling you that this is a fact. I'm just saying my perception, especially when it comes to the CIA, this sounds like something they would let happen. It sounds like something they would be a part of. You're telling me they vetted this guy and he just wakes up one day and he does this? Yeah, get real. I just don't buy that whatsoever. However, that's not the conversation on Capitol Hill, won't be the conversation on Capitol Hill, and definitely won't be a conversation with mainstream media. They'll gloss right over that, and for obvious reasons. So it takes us to the political debate that's taking place, which is, and it's the easy thing to do, just blame President Trump, okay? It's his policies. He's the president. This happened under his watch. It's all his fault, including the gun laws, which should be much more tighter, according to this Democrat Congresswoman. Let's pay attention. Let's listen to this now.
This is a deeply concerning situation, but, it's one that I think we have to begs the question, would an individual have flown across the country to target law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C.? And, the answer is likely no. So why wasn't the president's first thought, wow, maybe I should reconsider deploying military troops in the nation's capital or in any city, particularly not when they haven't coordinated closely with the leadership of these cities and when we have law enforcement that are quite capable of handling the criminal justice issues that that we need law enforcement to focus on, and not our military.
I don't know what she was trying to say there. I think she's trying to suggest that because the president deployed National Guard troops, this is a message for him to stop putting them into the streets, right? To stop deploying them to these cities. And obviously that's a bunch of bull because we know these are sanctuary cities that have allowed people to take matters into their own hands, assault ICE officers, ram ICE officers off the road, put bounties on ICE officers, throw rocks at ICE officers. I mean, everything you could think of to resist has happened. And so what do you think the president's going to do? Just sit by? I mean, of course, he's going to essentially at some point consider deploying National Guard troops to protect federal assets. It's within his authority. This is why you don't hear stuff like this happening in other cities, especially cities that have, that are willing to collaborate with the administration, you don't hear things like this. You only hear it in cities that are refusing to obviously work with the president. And so it escalates. And the root cause is not the president deploying National Guard troops. The root cause is the mass illegal immigration into our country that has led to these cities putting illegals first, allowing criminals to walk free because of cash is bail. And it has been a strain on our economy, been a strain on our safety. I mean, we could go down the line, situation by situation. The fact of the matter is that is the objective truth. Now, you want to disagree with how the president's going about it, go ahead. But that has nothing to do with National Guard troops getting gunned down in broad daylight by someone from Afghanistan. That's two different issues. So she goes a little deeper with how much she's willing to blame the president.
We need to make sure that we have tight and appropriate and proper vetting. If there were gaps that admitted this person, they would have failed over multiple levels of gaps. And this individual was trusted enough to participate in assisting our military during the war in Afghanistan. So I just think, the president looks everywhere except inward to blame his own policies. We need to make sure that we don't have our military deployed in our cities where handling law enforcement responsibilities. And we need to make sure that we address gun violence. We certainly need to make sure we always have the proper and appropriate and tight vetting processes, and those should be reviewed. But it's never the president's fault or his policies when it comes to his reaction, and it's pretty disgusting.
Well, this isn't his fault. I'm not too sure where she's going with that either. I mean, listen, they keep saying the police have the resources to respond. If they did, they would. And obviously, in some cases, they do have the resources. The problem is the mayor or the governor has handicapped them. Okay, they're not allowed to. So what do you want them to do? All right, that's number one. Number two, I'm not understanding this talking point that continues to be repeated from people on the left every time someone is gunned down. They say, oh, we need stricter gun laws. Okay, so let's just do the math on this. Name me a city that has the strictest gun laws. How many of you guys know of at least 3 cities? 3 cities with the strictest gun laws, okay? Let's see, let's do a Google search. Top 3 cities with the strictest gun laws. Let's see what comes up. That's interesting. Let me show this to you guys and get a kick out of this. What does that say? Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C. Okay. Other cities frequently mentioned include Los Angeles, San Francisco, Baltimore, Boston. Okay. So then the next question would be, does stricter gun laws equal reduced crime with firearms? And obviously, if you're thinking about Chicago, the answer is clearly no. So I don't know why they bring up this talking point. I think it's just something that, sounds good and makes sense on the surface, but when you really dig deep, you find out, nah, that's not true whatsoever. That's not true whatsoever. Let's see. Does stricter gun laws in these cities contribute to low crime rates? Yeah. Nope, it doesn't exist. I just looked it up right now. It doesn't exist. So, and why doesn't it exist? Well, because it's common sense, guys. The more laws you put in place, the more people will break laws. It's just that simple, okay? And that's just surface level. Let's go deeper. You can make all the laws you want. That's not going to stop criminals from getting guns illegally. Okay, there's a whole business dedicated to smuggling firearms into this country. So I don't understand why you're going to punish a law-abiding citizen. That has nothing to do with people smuggling firearms across the border. That's why it goes back to border security. Okay, that's why it goes back to plussing up DHS. Okay, that's why it goes back to dedicating law enforcement resources to actually going in and infiltrating gangs and certain neighborhoods that are obviously sources of this type of smuggling and activity. That's where the resources and the law should be targeting, not people who are following the law. I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but it's just fascinating that out of this entire tragedy, it's like she's a robot. This is what they do. They just automatically say, yeah, we need stricter gun laws. I mean, I'm not sure how much more stricter you can get in Washington, D.C. I please provide us an example. What law do you think would have prevented this Afghan national, who clearly has been radicalized, worked with the CIA, but might I add, what law would have prevented him from doing this as far as guns are concerned? I'm please, if someone can explain it, I'm all ears, because I can't connect that. I have a hard time seeing that. All right. I think this next clip is kind of just sums it all up, because why would someone like her go onto the news and say something like that? It's because inherently they don't see a problem with immigration. In fact, we're talking about people who love immigration. We're talking about people who want more Afghans in our country, more Somalians in our country. Listen, they want our country to be 100% immigrants. That's what it sounds like to me when I hear stuff like this. So let me just show you an example.
Are you concerned about the impact on Afghans here in the United States and frankly, other immigrants?
I'm speaking to you from Massachusetts, home to the country's first Thanksgiving 400 years ago, celebrated by refugees fleeing persecution. And this country has become the greatest nation in the history of the world in large measure because individuals come here and they build better lives for themselves and their families. We need to continue to do that. It's what makes us so strong and so vital. And we should not paint with a broad brush. That's not who we are as a country. Individuals are evaluated for who they are, for their work ethic, for their talent, for their integrity, not for the conduct of people who come from the same nation that they do or who look like them. That's not America. And despite this president's rhetoric, I know that Americans are not going to forget that core truth.
Well, it's Americans who believe that illegal aliens have no business being in our country. They want them deported. The last poll I've seen, it's up to 56% still. After everything that has occurred, after all of the propaganda, the rhetoric, the gut-wrenching videos that you see on social media of people getting thrown into vehicles. I mean, after all of that, the American people, 56% still believe in mass deportations. It's just common sense at the end of the day. You want people to immigrate to this country, make the standards high, and make sure that they do it the right way. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. The problem happens when we start abusing the system. And that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what continues to happen. And that's why a part of me, I don't buy much of what Congress says in general, because they could have fixed this issue decades ago. They just refuse not to. They just refuse not to. Some way down the line, this is about money, power, influence, elections, which is why they just won't fix this. And it's an easy fix. This is not complicated. We've got other countries that have already figured this out. But we refuse to figure it out or act like we can't figure it out when they already know what the solution is. They just, again, they don't want to. It's going back to the same mindset of just being kind of aware here. The guy worked for the CIA in some capacity, and he was vetted by multiple intelligence agencies, and I guess they all, whipped on him, I guess. They just didn't know who he was or what he was capable. Come on, man. Come on, man. We're talking about people who are trained in overthrowing governments. All right. I think they know exactly who this guy was, but they just clearly allowed it to happen. That's my own speculation again. All right. Let me go through this mess because times are getting crazy. So let me read this message to you guys. And this is for the men who watch my show. All right. Let's talk about something real for a minute. We live in a time where it's easy to be lazy. It's easy to drift. It's easy to feel comfortable or distracted. And it's easy to feel like you're not worth anything. That's exactly what feminism has done to men in our society today. I mean, think of the Democrat Party. They don't want men in their big tent party, as they say, right? But the truth is, the world needs strong men again. Men who will lead with purpose, who protect their families, who will live with integrity, and conviction. That's why I want to talk about frontline21.com. That is what it's all about. That, again, is Frontline 21. What is it? It's a movement of thousands of men who want to step up and start living with intentionality. It's built around a free 21-day challenge, a field guide that will help you strengthen your mind, your body, and your faith. It's real, practical stuff that helps you build discipline, courage, and character. And again, men inherently don't like to get help. Men inherently don't like to ask for help, but you got to think bigger than yourself, right? You have a purpose in your life. Your purpose is to protect, provide, and serve. You can't do that if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are obviously helping you fulfill that purpose, right? And maximize your potential. This is why I encourage you to check out frontline21.com. The link is in the description below. They have a free 21-day challenge. Also, you can download the free guide. Listen, thousands of men are willing to rise up, lead well, and stand firm in a world that's lost its way. That's why frontline21.com, which is totally free, wants men who are willing to help other men live with purpose, strength, and truth. Again, that is Frontline 21. Become the man you were created to be. The link is in the description below. Guys, I really love what they are offering. I love what they're doing because we live in a world today where, and men already know this, men are not looking for a handout. Men are not looking for a support group, okay? Nobody feels sorry for us. It's just the bottom line to it. But that doesn't mean you can't surround yourself with strong men. So check out frontline21.com. All right, let's hear what you guys have to say about the story so far. I mean, obviously, it's just a terrible situation right before Thanksgiving. It's so interesting because I was telling my team the day before Thanksgiving, the morning of, before this news broke, I was like, yeah, last year there was just so much news. And then, this time around, there's really nothing to talk about. And then boom, all of a sudden, And these are the stuff that I don't like talking about for obvious reasons because it's negative, right? But it is what it is. I'd rather talk about more positive stuff, but we can't control what happens. So, but having said that, I want to see what you guys have to say in the chat here as we pull this up for you guys. Here we go. All right, we're on Rumble first. Shout out to Rumble. Hopefully you guys had a great Thanksgiving with your family. Food was great. Let's keep going here. Oh, whoa. Okay. So we're back at it. We're back at it with people trying to disrupt the live show, right? I mean, we got multiple trolls in here. So let's see if we could just filter through them and get to people who actually have a brain for themselves. Okay, here we go. It's not a mistake. The EU got the dumb retard new. I thought you were going with EU's immigration policies because we've seen what happened. And that's exactly, they run around talking about fascism. What they really should be doing is talking about what happened with Europe, what happened to the UK. Because essentially, if we allow Democrats to get in charge, we're going in that direction. All right? I mean, they arrest people for criticism on social media. They arrest people for criticism on social. If I criticize a company, if I criticize a politician, if I criticize the government and I put it on social media, they'll show up at my door and arrest me. And they say that the president's silencing dissent. Yeah, that's a complete joke. That is a complete joke. You have no idea. Trolls are hitting you up, DeVory. Means they don't like what you're saying. Say it more and scream. No, we need a full-time moderator in this chat. That's what needs to happen. Okay. Let's head over to YouTube. Okay. Man, we got some haters in both chats. What did I say that was wrong? I don't understand. Here's going. The history of Europe must be examined internationally because there are states that only view it from the angle that is advantageous to them. We want to help, and we were enslaved. Yeah. Yeah, and they also threaten, Elon Musk and other Americans for criticizing their country. They said they'd come after us. Obviously, that isn't going to happen. You know. Yeah, they're not going to do term limits, guys. Might as well throw that in the trash. Here we go. We work and build. They protest and destroy. Yeah, that's a good point. Standards should be high. Immigrants come here for a better life. Look at our laws and learn them and maybe find ways that make their lives. This includes doing things maybe illegal. Yeah, it's suicidal empathy. Okay. It's complacency. This is a country that is now slave to convenience. And because we're so slave to convenience, we start, focusing on problems that really don't exist. And then we start making laws based on these problems that don't exist. That's if you take a look at a lot of these policies and these talking points, it's based on things that really are inherently, if you go down to the root cause of it, it's not a problem. It's a problem that they have created. A great example is just what we're talking about in today's show. Is the problem is not National Guard troops in cities. The problem is, the root cause of the problem are policies that have allowed criminals to run rampant in these cities, which is why immigrants flock to those cities, because they know they're not going to be held accountable. That's what the conversation really should be about. It has nothing to necessarily do with the president. It has everything to do with why is the city of Chicago, or why did New York City, for an example, put illegal immigrants into luxury hotels and give them $12,000 on a debit card? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. And then do that. That doesn't make any sense. And then the DA has the balls to prosecute a U.S. Marine for protecting a New Yorker on the subway. See, these are the conversations that we should be having, not, well, why does the president have troops in these cities? That's a symptom, guys. The root cause is crime is an issue. People don't feel safe in their neighborhoods. The leaders that be gaslight these people by saying, no, crime is down. Since 2024, crime is down. Crime overall is up, okay? especially in some of these cities. And let's not even get into how they've changed the language, refused to prosecute certain crimes, refused to respond to certain crimes. So yeah, the crime numbers, I'm not really confident of those numbers either. Okay. It's similar to voter ID. Why is it that the states that had voter ID, President Trump won, and the states that didn't have voter ID, Kamala Harris won? I think you guys can connect the dots on that. Yeah, I don't know. I must be saying something so important that they're playing with the live stream. I don't know. We're good on our end. I have people who say there's no problem. A lot of billionaires, immigrants, and politicians who let our immigration go unchecked, our jobs go to H-1Bs and outsource, should be 1,000% blamed for this misery. Term limits exist. It's called elections. Get involved. Outs the ones you don't like. Problem is everyone keeps voting them back in. Yeah, that's partly true. The other truth is that there's no voter ID. Mail-in ballots, like in California. They called the vote in regards to Prop 50 before any of the votes were publicly reported. Okay, let me reframe that again. Prop 50, which is responsible for allowing California to redraw its congressional districts, when they went to go publicly report the results, 0% of the votes were in. They had already called it and said that it's over. Prop 50 was agreed to. How does that happen exactly? So it happens because California owns their election system. They're not going to allow a Republican to become the governor. They're not going to do it. Okay? There's no way to hold them accountable whatsoever. There's no way, not at this point. There's no way. It's unfortunate. Let's keep going here. All right. Being a Native American, having been here for generations before there was an America, where's my 12,000 and reparations? Yeah, see, that's the thing. You know, we've seen what happens with reparations and what it will do to a community. All you have to do is look at the Native Americans who live on reservations today. Doesn't look like a good life to me. You know. Yeah, I guess you guys will have to log out and come back in. I see a lot of people saying that. My internet is good. You know, I'm not too sure. Listen, it usually happens when I'm talking about something controversial, and then, you know, the stream starts crashing. People start, you know, going into the comments and spamming people. That's usually what happens. All right. Let's continue here because I have a couple more clips to show you guys. Let me see if we are good on Rumble here. Back then, they had to work to survive. Now they can come in, get free housing, food, and healthcare. The motivation is not the same. Yeah, I mean, what if you're going to hand things out? What do you think people are going to do? They're going to take it, and then the word spreads, right? It's just the balance. There's no balance to the system when they allow people to come in this way. Now, let's continue here. Let's go to what the president had to say in his Q&A back and forth in Florida during that press conference because it got heated. Here's the first one.
You've made changes for Afghanis' ability to apply for asylum. Do you blame all Afghans for this one man's mistake?
No, but we've had a lot of problems with Afghans because they had a lot of them coming in on these planes. Again, I show you this picture. We had a lot of them coming in on these planes that are, look at them. There was no check-in. They just poured into the plane. And many of these people are criminals. Many of these people are people that shouldn't be here. And many of them have been gotten out. I mean, we've gotten out a lot of the people that, you know, we've taken a lot of them out of here.
But
they came in,
legally, right?
Yeah, I know, this deal, sorry. Many are wonderful, yeah,
No,
I'm sure.
I said many are here legally, though. What should they think in terms of their prospects?
Well, they can't be happy, okay? They can't be happy. Because what's taking place between that, if you look at Somalia, they're taking over Minnesota, and we got a lot of problems with the gangs, with all of the things taking place in Minnesota. We have an incompetent governor, we have a dope governor. They can't be happy about what's going on. And if you talk about the Afghans, you know, there's a problem because so many bad ones came in on the planes. They just walked in. Whoever the strongest people were physically in a way, but whoever the strongest, they got on the planes. There was no check-in. They just swamped the planes. They took off. We had no idea who they were.
No idea whatsoever. But if we really look past that, they had some ideas about who some of these individuals were, particularly the individuals that work with the CIA. I keep going back to it. They were aware who these people were. It's no accident why 55 of them were on the National Terror Watch List. Okay. And only out of the 55, according to the report from Fox News, 46 was cleared. 9 remaining. So there's that. And then there's this clip where he really gets upset.
Why do you blame the Biden administration
Because
for
they
what
let
this
him
man
in.
did?
Are you stupid? Are
Well,
you
no.
a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked, there were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place.
All right. So, guys, the political talking point from the White House is pretty clear. It's the Biden administration's fault. They'd allowed too many Afghanis to come over into our country. Vetting is a problem, especially in the Biden administration. This is why we need to get these people out of our country. We need to crack down on immigration as a whole. I mean, that's literally what the talking point is, okay? The left's talking point is very clear. The president, because he's, flying off the handle, he's, seeking to steal elections by deploying National Guard troops into cities. It has put National Guard troops at risk. And that's why it's his fault and it's his policies. And it doesn't matter what the Biden administration did. It's Trump, Trumpity Trump. Okay? That's what the talking points are. But my main takeaway so far, the thing that really stands out to me, is they said verbatim, multiple intelligence agencies vetted this guy, and he worked in conjunction with the CIA. They can say whatever they want politically. I think that tells a story right there. It tells the story right there. So, and I just find a hard time believing that these people don't know what's going on. Of course they do. I mean, thanks to 9/11, they know everything that's going on. Think about how many government programs were created in the name of national security to spy on us every day, every minute. It's just something to think about. Just something to think about. But the easy thing is just to blame the president. Now, the way they go about also doing this in order to encourage this type of behavior, if you think about it, not just from someone from Afghanistan, but just the American citizens who are also turning violent against this administration, is through something I called propaganda, right? They continue to suggest ideas that starts to make someone go into the direction of violence. But they don't ever tell people to get violent. They just put the ideas in your mind that leads you to violence. Let me show an example of that. Here's Jen Psaki saying this.
What do you think, as a lawyer, what do you think the consequences should be for people who are abiding by following these steps from the commander-in-chief when they seem to be complete overreaches of power?
They're following unlawful commands from Donald Trump. And if you're committing offenses and your defense is going to be, I was just following orders. You know, that didn't work out so well at Nuremberg. It certainly didn't work out so well for Lieutenant Calley when he, engaged in mass murder, the My Lai massacre. And, Pete Hegseth just doing whatever Donald Trump.
Hold on. I want to play the very beginning again. Listen to the language he used, okay? It's at the very beginning.
What do you think, as a lawyer, what do you think the consequences should be for people who are abiding by following these steps from the commander-in-chief when they seem to be complete overreaches of power?
They're following unlawful commands from Donald Trump. And if you're committing offenses and your defense is going to be, I was just following orders. That didn't work out so well at Nuremberg. It certainly didn't work out so well for Lieutenant Calley when he, engaged in mass murder.
Okay. I was trying to put it on loop for you. He said they are following unlawful orders from the president. He said they are following unlawful orders from the president. Those are two ideas that are both negative. One is to sow doubt within the military, which contradicts the chain of command. And two, for the person who's radical, what are they hearing? The president is issuing unlawful orders and he needs to be dealt with. That's what they're hearing. Now, imagine if you start to hear ideas like this on repeat. You take out your phone, you go on Facebook, you see that one clip, and then it starts showing you more of it. Then you go on to Instagram, you see that one clip, and then it starts showing you more of it. You go on Twitter. It's just the algorithms literally all do the same thing. You engage with one particular post, it shows you 1,000 of them. So a person who doesn't have their reasoning factor developed in a way that they can critically think, what's going to happen? They're going to start to believe it. Because they hear the same thing 1,000 different ways. I mean, let's just go back to it. I just have to hear this again. I want you to hear it with me here.
What do you think, as a lawyer, what do you think the consequences should be for people who are abiding by following these steps from the commander in chief when they seem to be complete overreaches of power?
They're following unlawful commands from Donald Trump. And if you're committing...
They're following unlawful commands, not orders. Okay. How can he say something like that and can't even provide an example? I'm telling you, this is one key piece of evidence that is in a field of it, right? A field of just all of this rhetoric and propaganda that is leading to what? An uprising. Violence. And people who have a couple of screws loose will take matters into their own hands. That's exactly what's going to happen. And it's been happening. I just don't understand how he could get away saying something like that. It's really interesting. So you combine that with the video from the 6 Democrats. Okay. You combine that with the rhetoric from the left about the president. And then you combine that with the image of America from the Middle East point of view. You got people who, it's not hard to radicalize people today. It really isn't. I keep saying it. A lot of Americans just don't understand how people feel about the United States of America, especially in the Middle East. Most people don't get it. And you're not going to get it unless you grow up there with their traditions, their values, their norms, and their perception. You just won't. You just have to understand, yes, we are the greatest superpower in the world, but we're like the biggest enemy in the world too. There's a lot of people who want to see this country eradicated. And they don't care how long it takes. It could take a couple of generations. They don't care. They'll do whatever it takes. And let's not forget what China's been up to and what they've already done. So, you know, I think it's a wake-up call once again that, well, listen, I don't want to get into conspiracies and stuff like that. I'll just say this. Please pray for the family, both of them, of course. I hope that she was able to make it into heaven, all right? I really hope so. And, you know, shout out to all the people serving right now in our military, especially the ones who are protecting federal assets right now in D.C. and other cities that the president has deployed them to. And I caution people on eating up propaganda from the mainstream media and just listening to some of the facts that have already been, you know, shared. You start to realize, yeah, this isn't about the president deploying troops to the cities. This isn't about stricter gun laws. Okay, this isn't about, you know, these troops aren't trained and et cetera. No. This is about someone who clearly has proper training, who clearly has worked in the capacity of helping our federal government overseas in the Middle East, in a country that continues to be a country that nobody can conquer if you think about it, Afghanistan. All history has shown that. And this is a guy who came back into our country, was vetted by multiple intelligence agencies. I don't know what else to say, but I think that's the biggest takeaway. I mean, that's just striking to me, but let's see what you guys have to say. One of the vetters said red flags were overwritten by Mayorkas. I agree. I totally agree. Let's see here. Someone said it's a holiday. The server load is lower than normal. This is an outright attack on this channel. It must be. Mossad trying to break down Rumble. Hold the line. You know, I've had some interesting conversations with people, and the takeaway is there's just certain things you can't talk about online because then they start, whether it's Mossad or other. Hey, I'll just stop. Okay, I'll just stop. Let me keep reading here because there's a lot that could be said into this, but yeah, it gets into some things that I think. Even on Rumble, I probably am going to get throttled here, so I'll keep it moving. Here we go. I was appalled when even conservative friends were saying flying all the Afghan heroes in was the right thing. I knew it was a bad idea. I understand why they would say that because emotionally, you see what some of these people have gone through to help our country in that situation of Afghanistan. I mean, some of these people actually care about that country and wanted to work with America. We all know it failed in the end. I mean, that's what the results show. I'm not too sure what we got out of Afghanistan. If you guys know, you could tell me in the chat. I just don't know. That includes Iraq too. I mean, what was really the return on investment exactly? What did we gain as a nation going into both those countries? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. And maybe it's because I was just in the regular level of the military. It's not like I worked in special operations or with the CIA or something like. So I don't know any of that information. But based on everything I've seen, that I've studied, that I've looked at, I still can't come up with a definitive reason that would say losing soldiers was worth it. I just don't see it. And I went there myself, and I don't have any, qualms about it. I'm very grateful. I think it was a great experience. I just don't know. And so anyways, in the process, they're using people who are from there to help us translate and train, etc. We were supposed to train their own military in a sense. And, again, what happened in the end? So I understand why they want to save some of these people. It makes sense, especially with how fast we tried to withdraw from Afghanistan, which is why it was a disaster overall and just violates common sense. I mean, anybody who serves in the military know the execution of that was poor. When 13 service members lose their lives in the process, what else is there to be said? Okay, there's nothing else to be said. So I understand why, but I also am like you. I disagree with when is enough, right? Where do we draw the line? How do we vet these people properly? And if we had pulled out Afghanistan in a timely fashion and not erratic, okay, then maybe we would have been able to do that. Okay. Yeah. Truth is better than the. I think you're trying to say truth is better than the PSYOP. I think that's what you're trying to say. Okay. Let's go to YouTube. Oh man, I really triggered some people today. I must have done something because I have no idea what was going on. Yeah, she was a military police. Yeah. There is no unlawful orders, okay? They can't tell us one. And they don't need to tell us one because the way propaganda works is you just say stuff that sounds good, that's emotional, and people accept it. Okay. It's only people who have that developed the muscle to reject what they hear and then choose to do the research. My question is, where did he get the gun from? Was he able to get a gun permit? Was a gun stolen? Was the original owner of the gun? And how did he get in his possession? We'll probably never know. Guys, I think I've been saying this pretty obviously throughout this chat today, but we don't know any. Well, according to the FBI, the guy who tried to take out the president on July 13th of last year was just a lone wolf. Okay, sure. All right. The guy who was camped out, at the golf course, lone wolf. Okay, sure. Again, I just a part of me, and maybe this is because I'm obsessed with spy TV shows and stuff like that. Maybe I'm a little I don't know. Maybe I'm into this stuff too much, but I just think there's a 3-letter agency that might be behind a lot of this stuff. Okay, I don't. How else do you explain it? I mean, so some young kid trained up to try to take out the president and was successful in hopping on the roof and knew exactly where to go and where to aim, and and he missed. I mean, I don't know, man. It doesn't sound like that was. It doesn't sound random to me, if that makes sense. Sounds like somebody that was prepped. That's what it sounds like to me. And so this is way above average life. I mean, most people, you don't need to think about stuff like this. This has nothing to do with your life, really. But, it happens. Okay, we have. There's no question there are people within this government that believes the president should cease to exist. There's no question about that. There's no question that there are people right now actively working against the president. And a lot of these people are in Congress on both sides of the aisle. A lot of people in the government right now, if this was his last day, they would be jumping up and down. And that's just in the United States of America. We're not talking outside of America. That's why I always tell people, you got to do process of elimination sooner or later, or weigh the alternatives, right? So we rage against the administration for their lack of messaging regarding the economy, the Epstein files, some of the people in the cabinet, but just understand what the alternative is at the end of the day. Think bigger picture here. I think this is the only president where we have at least some chance of pushing back on this stuff, some chance of holding people accountable, some chance of finally, blowing things up in a sense. It's 10 months in. We'll see if they get a little bit more aggressive next year, of course. And so we'll wait for the judgment until then. But we knew there would be no chance at all if Kamala Harris was in office. I agree with you. I don't believe Butler and the golf course were alone. I don't believe that. I just, I find it hard to believe. I just find it hard to believe. Okay. Let's see here. You got a lot of interference on your channel today. Yeah, I know, guys. I know. How's the other guardsman? They say the other guardsman is in critical condition. So hopefully he pulls through. She didn't pull through, unfortunately. And it's just a sad situation overall. But there's not much we could do at this point except pray for them. And hopefully they not only get the shooter to be in stable condition, because if he's in stable condition, then they can interrogate him. They can't do that right now. Or the reports are that he is, in serious condition. So they're not able to interview him at this point in time. That's what they're telling everybody. But I think we've seen where they wait to release certain key pieces of information so they can do what they got to do before telling the public. All right. Guys, I think bottom line today so far has been just this terrible update from the president. One of these troops were lost. Pray for the family. 2, this guy had CIA ties, worked in Afghanistan for our federal government. 3, clearly there's a vetting issue, but guys, that's not the real issue here. Again, it goes back to number 2. What's going on? This guy was vetted by multiple intelligence agencies. This is not a vetting issue. Okay. Now, the president will say that, just so you guys understand, because politically, it's the perfect talking point. All right. But if we're just looking at the objective truth here, and we're looking at exactly who this guy was and what he was doing in Afghanistan and what he went through to get into this country, what the president is saying is not really what's going on here. Okay. Again, it sounds like a broken record, but I think I've said enough on that. And finally, you got Democrats